Michael Jordan sees coach yelling at a kid for missing a shot. What he does next shuts down the game. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's story begins in Wilmington, North Carolina, a city far from the spotlight that would eventually shine so brightly on him. Born into a working-class family, Jordan's early life was defined by hard work, discipline, and the simple joys of childhood in the 1960s and 1970s. His father, James Jordan Sr., played a crucial role in shaping the young Michael, emphasizing the importance of perseverance and the value of a strong work ethic. James' influence was pivotal, not just in providing Michael with the tools for success, but in instilling a belief that greatness was within reach for anyone willing to work for it. Growing up in a family of athletes, Michael was never the tallest or the strongest, but he was driven. He had older brothers who were exceptional athletes, and this fueled a sense of competition that became embedded in his DNA. However, unlike many young athletes who are naturally gifted, Michael had to fight for every inch. His early years on the basketball court were marked by failure and rejection, the first significant challenge being his sophomore year at Laney High School. Rejected from the varsity basketball team, Michael was left devastated but determined. His growth was more than physical, it was about proving to himself that he could overcome any obstacle. Michael's rejection was the fuel that lit his fire. Instead of succumbing to self-doubt, he threw himself into improving. The gym became his second home. While other students were out hanging out with friends, Michael spent hours practicing shots, refining his footwork, and developing the skills that would later make him one of the greatest players to ever step on a basketball court. His work ethic became legendary, even in those early days. His determination to make the team the next year became an obsession, and by the end of his junior year, he had earned a spot on the varsity squad. More importantly, he had proven to himself that no setback could stop him from achieving his goals. High school basketball in Wilmington became the backdrop for Michael's evolution into a force to be reckoned with. His junior year saw him develop from a player who had to fight for recognition into one who commanded attention. His name spread across the state as he became one of the most talked about young players in North Carolina. But even as his talents became undeniable, Michael faced a new challenge, the expectations that came with his rising reputation. He had gone from being overlooked to being the centerpiece of Laney's basketball program. His senior year was marked by a combination of dominance on the court and growing awareness of the pressure he now carried. While his abilities were undeniable, there was something more that set Michael apart from the competition: his mentality. He wasn't just a player who could score points, he was a player who could take over games. He was a player who wanted the ball in the clutch moments, who didn't back down when the game was on the line. This mental toughness became a hallmark of his career. It was apparent even in his high school days when, in the closing seconds of a game, he demanded the ball and delivered a game-winning shot, an early glimpse of the greatness that lay ahead. Despite his success in high school, Michael's journey to college basketball was not an easy one. Colleges across the country were recruiting him, but the pressure to make the right decision weighed heavily on him. Michael wasn't just choosing a school, he was choosing the path that would lead him to greatness. After much consideration, he chose the University of North Carolina, where legendary coach Dean Smith awaited. Smith had a reputation for developing players into well-rounded athletes, not just stars, and for Michael, this was exactly what he needed. He wasn't just looking for a place to shine, he was looking for a place to grow. Michael's freshman year at UNC was eye-opening. Coming from a high school where he had been the focal point of every game, Michael was now one of many talented players in a program with a rich history. Initially, it was a humbling experience. He was no longer the best player on the court, and there was no guaranteed spot in the starting lineup. But Michael, true to his nature, embraced the challenge. He understood that this was part of his development as a player. Instead of seeing his role as a freshman as a setback, he saw it as an opportunity to improve. Despite the adjustment period, Michael's talent quickly shone through. In his first season, he made an immediate impact, becoming a key contributor for a UNC team that would eventually go on to win the NCAA championship. The national spotlight had finally found its way to Michael Jordan, and he delivered when it mattered most. His game-winning shot in the championship game against Georgetown is still etched in the minds of basketball fans as one of the most iconic moments in college basketball history. It wasn't just the shot that made the moment so significant, it was how Michael rose to the occasion, not as a freshman, but as someone who had the confidence and poise of a seasoned veteran. By the end of his freshman year, Michael Jordan was no longer just a talented player, he was a winner. The confidence he had gained from his success at North Carolina carried over into his professional aspirations. After his sophomore year, he declared for the NBA draft, marking the beginning of the next phase of his journey. Entering the 1984 NBA draft, Jordan was seen as a promising prospect, but no one could have predicted the level of impact he would have in the league. The Chicago Bulls selected him with the 3rd overall pick, setting the stage for a career that would forever change the game of basketball. His entry into the NBA, though filled with excitement and anticipation, also came with a set of challenges. The Bulls were far from a championship contender, and Michael had to prove himself in a league filled with established stars. From his very first game in the NBA, Michael Jordan made an impression. His athleticism, his fierce competitiveness, and his scoring ability were immediately evident. He was the kind of player who could take over a game, whether through a thunderous dunk or an impossible shot from the perimeter. But as he quickly realized, the NBA was a different beast. He was no longer the biggest fish in a small pond, he was competing against the best players in the world. The early years of Jordan's NBA career were marked by individual success but also by frustration. The Bulls, despite having Jordan on their roster, were not a dominant team. Michael was scoring in bunches, but without a supporting cast capable of competing at the highest level, the Bulls struggled to make a significant impact in the postseason. But Michael's mindset never wavered. Instead of being discouraged, he took the team's struggles as a challenge. He wasn't just focused on his individual success, he wanted to win championships, and he knew that would require more than just his scoring ability. The journey was long, filled with ups and downs, but Michael's belief in himself and his relentless drive to improve were the traits that set him apart. As he continued to develop, so too did the Chicago Bulls. And as the team began to improve, so did Michael's legacy. The first step toward greatness had been taken. Michael Jordan was on his way to becoming not just a star, but a legend. The early part of Michael Jordan's NBA career was a testament to his individual brilliance. In his rookie season, he had already proven that he was different from the rest. His scoring, athleticism, and sheer will to win set him apart as one of the league's most exciting new talents. However, despite Jordan's incredible performance, the Chicago Bulls were still a team in flux. They were struggling to build a competitive roster around him, and the struggles in the postseason highlighted just how much work still needed to be done. In his first year, Jordan averaged 28.2 points per game, an impressive feat for a rookie, and made an immediate impact in games. The combination of his skills, his incredible vertical leap, his ability to change direction mid-flight, and his fearlessness made him one of the most electrifying players the league had seen. His rookie season earned him the NBA Rookie of the Year award, but even with all the accolades and recognition, the Bulls weren't contenders. Jordan was playing on a team that didn't have the depth to match his talent. The real turning point in Jordan's career, and in the Bulls' success, came in the following seasons. The Bulls front office knew that Jordan could not win championships alone. As much as he was capable of taking over games, he needed help. Chicago began to build the pieces around Jordan, first by drafting Scottie Pippen in 1987. Pippen, although raw and unrefined at the time, had incredible potential. His athleticism, combined with his length and basketball IQ, made him a perfect complement to Jordan. As the two began to develop chemistry on the court, Jordan's game evolved. While he was still the primary scorer, he began to trust his teammates more. He learned that in order to win at the highest level, he had to rely on others to share the burden. The addition of Pippen, along with the presence of veteran players like John Paxson and Horace Grant, made the Bulls a more complete team. They still faced their challenges, but the potential for something great was beginning to take shape. The defining moment in Jordan's career came during the 1988-89 season. That year, Jordan had his first opportunity to face off against the Detroit Pistons in the playoffs. The Pistons, led by Isaiah Thomas, had been one of the most physically dominant teams in the NBA, employing the notorious Jordan rules to neutralize the young star. They would crowd him when he drove to the basket, knock him off his rhythm, and try to get into his head. The Pistons were not just a team, they were a symbol of everything Jordan had to overcome. In the first few years of the rivalry, the Pistons were able to stymie Jordan. The Bulls were eliminated in the Eastern Conference Finals for 2 straight seasons, and each time, Jordan's frustration grew. He was still a dominant player, but he was being stifled in the postseason. The more physical the Pistons played, the more it seemed to affect his game. It wasn't just about being physically outmatched, it was about breaking Jordan's spirit, something no one had done before. But Jordan wasn't one to back down. Rather than complaining about the Pistons' tactics, he took it upon himself to grow stronger, faster, and more resilient. The off-season workouts became more intense. Jordan added weight and muscle to his frame, focusing on improving his physicality without sacrificing his agility and speed. He knew that the only way to break through the Pistons was to face them head-on, both physically and mentally. In the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals, the Pistons and the Bulls met again, but this time, Jordan had a new weapon, his own maturation. The series was intense, with the Pistons continuing their physical approach. But Jordan's mindset had changed. He was no longer just a player relying on his natural talent, he was now a player who had developed the skill and toughness needed to go toe-to-toe with the league's best. Even with all the attention the Pistons gave him, Jordan still found a way to perform. He scored 63 points in Game 2 of the series, a record for playoff points at the time, showing the world that he could not be stopped. However, even after such a performance, the Pistons still held a 2-1 lead in the series. It was in Game 4 when Jordan, with his newfound physical and mental toughness, led the Bulls to a critical win. But the game that truly marked his breakthrough was Game 5, when Jordan finally figured out how to solve the Pistons' defense. His combination of explosive drives to the basket and his ability to make plays for teammates gave the Bulls a 4-2 series victory. The victory was significant not just because it sent the Bulls to the NBA Finals, but because it signified Jordan's ability to overcome the mental and physical obstacles that had previously held him back. For the first time in his career, Michael Jordan had done the impossible. He had defeated the Detroit Pistons, a team that had plagued him for years. The victory was cathartic for Jordan, but it also marked the beginning of something greater. The Bulls had reached the NBA Finals for the first time in Jordan's career, and although they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in 5 games, the stage had been set for Jordan to take his place as the league's most dominant player. The defeat in the 1991 Finals was a tough one, but Jordan's experience against the Pistons had forged a different kind of player. His mental toughness and his ability to overcome adversity were now part of his legacy. More importantly, he had learned how to win with a team. It wasn't just about his individual brilliance anymore, it was about using his skills to elevate everyone around him. That was the lesson Jordan took with him into the next season. The 1991-1992 season saw Jordan and the Bulls finally reach their full potential. The team had solidified its chemistry, and with a new sense of purpose, they dominated the NBA. Jordan had grown as a leader, not just a scorer, and he had helped shape a team that was hungry for success. His competitive fire was unmatched, but now, it was tempered with the understanding that championships were won as a team. The 1992 season saw the Bulls capture their first NBA championship. In the finals, they defeated the Portland Trail Blazers in 6 games, and Jordan was named Finals MVP. The victory was the culmination of everything he had worked for, overcoming the Pistons, developing as a leader, and learning how to win with a team. This championship was more than just a trophy, it was a statement to the league that Michael Jordan had arrived as not just a player but a winner. In many ways, Jordan's early years in the NBA shaped him into the player he would become. The struggles, the setbacks, and the challenges all played a part in building the mentality that would make him one of the greatest basketball players of all time. His success wasn't just about his natural talent, it was about his unrelenting drive to be the best, to overcome any obstacle, and to lead his team to victory. The first steps in his journey had been taken, and they were just the beginning of what would become one of the most iconic careers in the history of sports. As the 1992 to 1993 season began, Michael Jordan was not just a player, he was a symbol of excellence. Having led the Chicago Bulls to their first NBA title the previous year, he now had a new target on his back. The world was watching, waiting to see if Jordan could repeat his success and solidify his place in basketball history. Despite the pressure, Jordan was as focused as ever. He had already proven he could lead a team to the top, but now the challenge was to stay at the summit. The Chicago Bulls, though coming off a championship, had not remained static. The team had undergone changes during the offseason. Some key players had moved on, and there were questions about whether the squad had the depth to defend their title. However, the core of the team, Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and coach Phil Jackson, was still intact. They were determined to prove that their first championship was not a fluke, but a sign of the dynasty they intended to build. Jackson had established a winning culture, and with Jordan's leadership, the team had learned how to overcome adversity and win as a cohesive unit. Jordan, now in his prime, had developed into an even more complete player. His scoring ability remained unmatched, but it was his all-around game that set him apart from the rest of the league. His defense, playmaking, and leadership were all elevated to new heights. Scottie Pippen, now a full-fledged star in his own right, had developed into one of the league's best all-around players, and the chemistry between him and Jordan was undeniable. Pippen's versatility made him the perfect complement to Jordan, whether on defense, handling the ball, or scoring. They formed one of the most lethal duos in NBA history. As the Bulls dominated the regular season, winning 57 games and finishing with the best record in the Eastern Conference, it became clear that this was a team capable of repeating as champions. Yet, despite the success, Jordan knew that the ultimate test lay ahead. The team would have to prove themselves once again in the postseason, where the true champions would be crowned. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls found themselves matched up with the New York Knicks, a team known for its physicality and tough defense. Led by Patrick Ewing, the Knicks had a roster built around toughness and grit. They were the type of team that would test the Bulls' resolve, pushing them to the limit in every game. The series was expected to be a battle of wills, and the physical nature of the games would only intensify the rivalry between the two teams. Game 1 of the series was a clear indication that the Knicks were prepared to take the fight to the Bulls. The game was physical, and Jordan found himself in the midst of a much more aggressive defense than he had faced in the finals the previous year. The Knicks were determined to prevent Jordan from dominating the game the way he had done in the past. However, as always, Jordan responded to the challenge. He scored 54 points, leading the Bulls to a narrow victory. The Knicks had shown they were not going to back down, but Jordan's performance in Game 1 sent a message: this was his time, and no one was going to take that away from him. The series would continue to be a test of both physical and mental endurance. As the games wore on, the Knicks played with increasing intensity, determined to wear the Bulls down. Jordan, however, continued to shine. Despite the constant pressure, he was able to rise above the physicality and produce when it mattered most. His leadership, both on and off the court, became increasingly crucial. With each victory, the Bulls' confidence grew, and Jordan's belief in his team's ability to win only strengthened. The series went to a deciding Game 7, a game that would determine whether the Bulls could overcome the Knicks' relentless defense and continue their march toward a second consecutive championship. In a hard-fought game, the Bulls emerged victorious, defeating the Knicks 110-81 to claim the series 4-3. Jordan's leadership, once again, proved to be the difference. He didn't just score, he made plays, got teammates involved, and ensured that his team would not falter under the immense pressure. His 29-point performance in Game 7, coupled with his defensive effort, helped propel the Bulls to the finals once again. As the Bulls moved on to face the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals, the team faced yet another challenge. The Suns, led by the MVP of the season, Charles Barkley, had been one of the best teams in the West. Barkley, a dominant forward who had carried the Suns on his back all season, was a player the Bulls would have to contend with in order to capture their second championship. The matchup promised to be a thrilling series, as Phoenix had proven they could play at an elite level. The finals began with the Bulls and Suns exchanging wins in the first two games. Jordan, who had been in control throughout the playoffs, continued to carry the team with his incredible scoring. However, it was becoming clear that the Suns were no pushovers. Game 3, played in Phoenix, was a turning point in the series. The Suns came out strong, taking a 2-1 lead, and it seemed like the Bulls' road to the championship would not be as easy as the previous year. Despite the setbacks, Jordan remained calm and focused. He knew the Bulls' success didn't rely solely on him. Pippen, who had become a defensive force and was showing new offensive abilities, stepped up in a big way. His all-around game made him invaluable in the series, and with Jordan continuing to score, the two of them gave the Bulls the balance they needed to overcome the Suns. Game 4 was a pivotal moment in the finals. Jordan scored 55 points, putting the Bulls back in control of the series with a narrow 111-105 win. It was one of the most impressive individual performances of his career and a reminder to the Suns that when the game was on the line, Michael Jordan was unstoppable. With the series tied 2-2, the Bulls regained their confidence and shifted the momentum in their favor. As the series progressed, the Suns began to lose their grip. The Bulls, with Jordan leading the charge, took control in Game 5. The key to their success was not just Jordan's scoring, but the way the team as a whole began to play with a sense of unity. The triangle offense, implemented by Phil Jackson, was functioning at a high level, and the Bulls were playing unselfish basketball. The ball movement, combined with Jordan's ability to take over at any moment, made them an incredibly tough team to stop. In Game 6, with the Bulls leading 3-2 in the series, they clinched their second consecutive championship. Jordan, once again, was named Finals MVP. His 41 points in the final game secured the victory for the Bulls, and their second championship in 2 years was now in the books. The victory solidified the Bulls' place as a dynasty, and Michael Jordan's place as one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Jordan had not just carried the Bulls to their second title, he had proven that he could do it consistently. His ability to lead his team, to rise above the competition, and to deliver in the clutch was unparalleled. The 1993 championship was another milestone in Jordan's already legendary career, but it was also a reminder of his relentless drive to be the best. Every challenge, every obstacle, and every rival was met with the same unwavering mentality. As the Bulls celebrated their second title, it was clear that Jordan's journey was far from over. He had reached new heights, and the best was still yet to come. The 1993-1994 season arrived with a sense of uncertainty surrounding Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Jordan had reached the peak of his career, having won 3 consecutive championships, and his legacy was already well established. But then, the unthinkable happened. Jordan retired from basketball at the age of 30, taking a step away from the game that had defined his life. His decision stunned the sports world and left many wondering if he would ever return to the court. Jordan's reasons for stepping away were complex, but they centered around his need for a break from the pressures of the game. The murder of his father, James Jordan Sr., earlier that summer had shattered him emotionally. The loss of his father, someone who had been his biggest supporter, left a hole in Jordan's life that basketball could not fill. Jordan's first retirement was a departure from the game that few could have predicted. Just 2 years prior, he had led the Bulls to their 3rd straight championship and had proven himself as the most dominant player in the league. He had earned the adoration of millions and cemented his place as the greatest basketball player of his generation. But despite his personal and professional success, Jordan needed a break. His retirement was not driven by physical wear and tear, he was at the height of his powers, but by an emotional exhaustion that no one could have anticipated. In 1994, Jordan shocked the world when he announced his decision to pursue a career in professional baseball. This was a move that seemed out of left field, considering his unmatched success in basketball. Michael had always said that his father had hoped he would play baseball, and after the tragic loss of his father, he made the decision to honor that wish. Jordan signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox and played for the Birmingham Barons, a Double-A affiliate of the White Sox. His performance on the baseball field was far from spectacular, but it was clear that Jordan's competitive drive remained as strong as ever. He approached baseball with the same intensity and work ethic that had made him a legend on the basketball court. His batting average wasn't high, but his ability to stay disciplined and focused was evident. Jordan was learning a new sport, and while it didn't come as naturally to him as basketball, he embraced the challenge. During his time away from the NBA, the Bulls continued to play without Jordan, but they weren't the same team. While they remained competitive, they lacked the focal point that had made them so successful in the previous seasons. Scottie Pippen emerged as a leader, but it was clear that the team was missing the dynamic presence of Michael Jordan. They made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals, but ultimately fell short against the New York Knicks. Chicago was still a good team, but without Jordan, they were not the juggernaut they had been in the previous years. The Bulls' post-Jordan era seemed uncertain, but they were still a force in the East. In March 1995, Jordan made his return to the NBA. His decision to come back was sudden but not entirely unexpected. After spending a year in baseball, Jordan realized that basketball was where his heart truly lay. Despite his success in baseball, he felt a void that only basketball could fill. The fire that had initially burned so brightly for the sport had never truly gone out. His decision to return was signaled by a simple but iconic message: "I'm back." The announcement reverberated through the sports world, and the expectations surrounding his return were sky-high. The Bulls, who had weathered the storm without him, welcomed him back with open arms. However, the transition was not without its challenges. Jordan had been away from the game for over a year, and the pace of the NBA had changed during his absence. He was no longer the freshest player in the league, and the competition had only grown stronger. The Chicago Bulls, too, had changed. Phil Jackson was still the head coach, and the core of the team was intact, but the dynamic had shifted. The absence of Jordan had forced others to step up, and Scottie Pippen had flourished in his role as the leader of the team. Jordan's return to the court in 1995 was met with fanfare, but it took time for him to regain his rhythm. He wasn't immediately the dominant force he had been before. The rust from his time away was evident, and his shooting, while still strong, lacked the sharpness it had once had. The Bulls were struggling at times, and while Jordan was able to make an immediate impact on the court, the team had to find its footing again. His return to basketball wasn't just about reasserting his dominance, it was about finding his place within the team once again. The chemistry that had made the Bulls so successful during their championship years needed to be rebuilt, and Jordan had to reintegrate himself into a system that had moved on without him. By the end of the 1994-1995 season, the Bulls had regained their form, and Jordan had found his stride. Although they were eliminated by the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference semifinals, it was clear that the team was beginning to gel again. Jordan had returned to the finals form we had all come to expect, and the belief within the team was restored. His performance in the postseason, despite the loss, showed that he was still the same player who had led the Bulls to multiple championships. He averaged 31.5 points per game during the playoffs and showed that he still had the same drive and competitiveness that had made him a global icon. The 1995-1996 season marked the beginning of the second chapter of Jordan's career. The Bulls had made the necessary adjustments to incorporate Jordan back into the lineup, and with his return, the team was ready to reclaim its throne at the top of the NBA. Chicago made a number of key acquisitions during the offseason, most notably the addition of veteran guard Ron Harper and the improvement of players like Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr. These pieces, combined with the leadership of Jordan and Pippen, made the Bulls a formidable force once again. Jordan entered the 1995-1996 season focused and ready to prove that his time away from the game had not diminished his ability to perform. The regular season was a statement. The Bulls finished with a record of 72-10, the best in NBA history at the time. Jordan was back to his usual form, averaging 30.4 points per game, and he was the focal point of an offense that was once again dominating the league. His leadership, combined with the talent surrounding him, made the Bulls nearly unstoppable. The team's success was a reflection of Jordan's growth as a player, his ability to lead by example, and his determination to win. In the postseason, the Bulls cruised to the NBA Finals, where they faced the Seattle Supersonics. The series was a testament to the Bulls' dominance. Jordan, still the best player on the court, was named Finals MVP for the fourth time in his career. His performance in the finals, especially in the closing games, cemented his legacy as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. The 1995-1996 championship was the beginning of another dynasty for Jordan and the Bulls. They had bounced back from the heartbreak of his first retirement and reclaimed their place at the top of the NBA. Jordan's return had been nothing short of spectacular, and it was clear that he was far from finished. The 1990s had become the era of Michael Jordan, and the best was yet to come. His story had entered a new chapter, and as he looked forward to the next season, the championship pursuit continued. The 1996-1997 season marked the beginning of what could be called Michael Jordan's most complete year. The Chicago Bulls, fresh off their 72-win season and an NBA title, entered the new season as the team to beat, but Jordan was more focused than ever on his legacy. The 1996 championship had proven that his return from baseball was more than just a one-off success, it was a declaration of his sustained greatness. With a roster full of talent, including the ever-impressive Scottie Pippen, sharpshooting Steve Kerr, and rising stars like Tony Kukoc, the Bulls were set to defend their title and possibly begin a new era of dominance. However, despite their overwhelming success, the season was not without its challenges. The pressure to repeat was immense. Teams like the Miami Heat, New York Knicks, and the newly emerged Indiana Pacers were gunning for the Bulls. The prospect of a second consecutive championship loomed large, but Jordan and the Bulls embraced the challenge. They didn't just want to prove they were still the best, they wanted to further solidify their place as one of the greatest teams in NBA history. The beginning of the season proved that the Bulls were indeed in championship form. Jordan came out of the gates firing, showing no signs of slowing down after a year that had already seen him win his fourth NBA Finals MVP. With Pippen providing steady support and the Bulls' defense as stingy as ever, they were a well-rounded machine. They finished the regular season with a 69-13 record, once again dominating the competition. Jordan was as sharp as ever, averaging 29.6 points per game, and once again proving that his offensive game was nearly impossible to contain. But his impact was not limited to scoring. He had become more than just an offensive juggernaut, he had turned into a complete player who could dominate on both ends of the floor. It wasn't just Jordan's scoring that set the tone for the Bulls. The team's success was largely due to the dynamic between him and Pippen. Their partnership had blossomed, and Pippen had grown into one of the league's top all-around players. The two of them were the heart of the Bulls' offense, but also the backbone of their defense. Together, they made up a defensive tandem that could shut down almost any offensive attack. Pippen was able to guard the opposing team's best player, while Jordan's ability to anticipate and disrupt passing lanes made him an elite defender. The Chicago Bulls, as a team, had become an unstoppable force, proving that greatness was not just about having one star player, but about building a system where every player had a role to play and could shine when needed. While Jordan was still the star, the team's depth was becoming a defining feature. Steve Kerr, who had become a sharpshooter off the bench, added an element of space to the Bulls' offense, which was already full of driving power. The addition of veteran Ron Harper, who had won championships with the Los Angeles Lakers, brought invaluable experience to the team's defensive schemes. Tony Kukoc was also playing a critical role as a versatile forward who could score from anywhere on the floor. With key contributions from all corners of the roster, the Bulls were primed to defend their title and maybe even expand their legacy. As the playoffs began, the Chicago Bulls were locked in and focused. They had been on a mission since the moment the season began, and now they had to prove it on the biggest stage. The first round saw them face the Washington Bullets, a team that was simply outmatched. The Bulls swept them in 3 games, with Jordan looking like he had never left his prime. In the second round, they would face the Atlanta Hawks, a team that had managed to put up a decent fight during the regular season, but once again, the Bulls proved too much. They dispatched the Hawks in 4 games as well. The Eastern Conference Finals brought the real test. The Indiana Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, had developed into one of the toughest teams in the league. The Pacers played with an edge, and Miller, known for his shooting and ability to hit clutch shots, was a constant threat. But the Chicago Bulls were not intimidated. They had been here before. They knew what it took to win under pressure. The series against Indiana was not easy. Miller's hot shooting and the Pacers' tough defense made it one of the most hard-fought series the Bulls had faced in recent memory. The Pacers took the Bulls to Game 7, a game that would decide who would represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. The game was a back-and-forth battle, with both teams refusing to give an inch. Jordan, despite facing stiff resistance from the Pacers, showed why he was the best in the league. In the end, his leadership and sheer will to win carried the Bulls to a 92-88 victory, sending them to the finals for the second consecutive year. In the 1997 NBA Finals, the Bulls met the Utah Jazz, who had been led by the great Karl Malone and point guard John Stockton. The Jazz were one of the best teams in the league that year, but they were facing a Bulls team that was on a mission to further cement its legacy. The series started off with both teams exchanging wins, but it was clear that the Jazz were overmatched when it came to competing with the Bulls' intensity and experience. The first few games were tightly contested, but the Bulls' depth, and particularly the play of Jordan, gave them the upper hand. The defining moment of the 1997 Finals came in Game 5, when Michael Jordan delivered one of the most memorable performances of his career. Despite battling the flu, Jordan played 44 minutes, scoring 38 points and leading the Bulls to a crucial victory. His performance in Game 5, later dubbed the flu game, solidified his place as not only the best player in the league, but one of the most mentally tough athletes to ever play the game. His ability to play at an elite level while sick, showing resilience and determination, embodied everything that made Jordan great. With the series tied at 2-2, Game 6 was the moment that would decide the champion. The Jazz, despite all their talent, couldn't match the Bulls' experience in close games. In the final moments of Game 6, with the Bulls up by 3 points, Jordan hit a critical three-pointer over the outstretched arm of Brian Russell. It was a shot that would go down in history as one of the defining moments of his career. The Bulls won the game and the series, capturing their 5th NBA championship. Jordan was once again named Finals MVP, a testament to his incredible performance and leadership throughout the series. The 1997 championship marked another milestone in Jordan's legacy. With 5 championships under his belt, Jordan had solidified his place as the greatest basketball player of his era. But what made this title even more meaningful was the way it was achieved. It wasn't just Jordan's scoring that made the difference, it was his ability to elevate those around him and make the entire team better. The 1997 Finals was a reminder that Jordan wasn't just a scorer, he was a leader who could carry his team to victory in the most challenging moments. As the Bulls celebrated their 5th title, it was clear that their dynasty was far from over. The team had proved they were the best once again, but the journey was not complete. With another season ahead, the pursuit of greatness would continue. Jordan and the Bulls were hungry for more, knowing that they were on the verge of something truly special. The 1997 championship was a testament to their strength, resilience, and commitment to excellence, but it was only the beginning of the next chapter in their storied dynasty. The 1997-1998 season was a year filled with high expectations for the Chicago Bulls, and for Michael Jordan, it was shaping up to be a season of both triumph and transition. As the defending NBA champions, the Bulls were gunning for their 3rd consecutive title. With Jordan leading the charge, the team was once again poised to dominate, but there was an undeniable sense that this was a make-or-break year. The team had already won 5 championships, but the reality was that this would likely be the end of the Bulls' dynasty as the roster was aging and contract situations were looming over the team. For Michael Jordan, it was his final season with the Chicago Bulls, a fact that was known by everyone, though no one really wanted to admit it. The season was often referred to as the last dance, a term that captured both the optimism and the bittersweet undertones of the year. The team's head coach, Phil Jackson, had been told by the front office that this would be his last season as the Bulls coach, regardless of the outcome. Scottie Pippen, who had been Jordan's trusted sidekick for so many years, was also dealing with his own contract issues. The team was at a crossroads, but one thing was certain, Jordan was determined to finish what he had started and lead the Bulls to another championship. The start of the season was business as usual for the Bulls, with Jordan proving that age was just a number. Even though he was in his mid-30s, Jordan's talent and leadership were unquestioned. He was still the most dominant player on the court, averaging over 28 points per game, and his ability to take over games in the clutch remained unmatched. However, the burden of leadership was weighing on him. Despite his legendary status, he was still carrying the responsibility of ensuring that the team remained focused and hungry for another title. The pressure of defending the championship, combined with the realization that this could be his final season, began to take its toll on Jordan both physically and mentally. As the season progressed, the Bulls continued to dominate the regular season. Despite dealing with injuries and fatigue, the team finished with a 62-20 record, securing the best record in the Eastern Conference and a high seed in the playoffs. The dynamic between Jordan and Pippen had never been better, and the complementary nature of their game was evident. Jordan's scoring ability was as lethal as ever, but Pippen's all-around play, especially his defense, gave the team the balance it needed to excel. Pippen was not the star he had been earlier in his career, but he had developed into one of the most complete players in the league. His leadership on the floor allowed Jordan to conserve his energy when needed, and they operated like a finely tuned machine. While Jordan and Pippen remained the heart and soul of the team, other players were stepping up. Tony Kukoc, who had been an integral part of the team for years, provided the necessary scoring and playmaking off the bench. Steve Kerr, who had proven to be a reliable shooter, also provided a spark in key moments. Even veterans like Ron Harper and Luke Longley played their roles, contributing to the team's overall success. The chemistry within the squad was palpable, and it was clear that they were more than just a group of talented individuals. They were a team united in their pursuit of a sixth championship. The 1998 playoffs brought their fair share of challenges. The first round saw the Bulls face off against the Indiana Pacers, a team that had given them trouble in the past. The Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, were a gritty team that relied on their defense and shooting. The series was expected to be another tough test, and the Pacers didn't disappoint. Despite the Bulls' overwhelming talent, the Pacers pushed them to the brink, taking the series to Game 7. Jordan's leadership and Pippen's defense played a crucial role in ensuring that the Bulls emerged victorious, but the series was a reminder that, even though the Bulls were still the top team, they were no longer invincible. The Eastern Conference Finals were even more challenging. The Bulls faced the New Jersey Nets, a team that had been steadily improving but still lacked the experience necessary to challenge a team like Chicago. The Bulls swept the Nets in 4 games, but even in victory, there were signs that the team's age and wear and tear were starting to show. Jordan, while still dominant, was beginning to feel the physical toll of his career. He had been playing at a high level for nearly 15 years, and the relentless grind of the NBA season was beginning to catch up with him. Despite his fatigue, he continued to push through, knowing that this could be his final opportunity to win another title. As the Bulls entered the NBA Finals, the stage was set for one of the most memorable championships in basketball history. Their opponents were the Utah Jazz, a team led by 2 of the league's best players, Karl Malone and John Stockton. The Jazz had been knocking on the door of an NBA championship for years, and they were determined to take down the defending champs. The final series would be a battle of wills, and it would ultimately come down to which team could rise to the occasion. The series started with the Jazz taking an early lead, but the Bulls quickly regrouped. In Game 1, Jordan showcased his dominance, leading the Bulls to an 84-82 victory with 31 points, including crucial plays down the stretch. The Bulls' defense, as always, was instrumental in keeping the Jazz from getting into any offensive rhythm. But it wasn't just Jordan's scoring that made the difference, it was his leadership. He was calm under pressure, making the right decisions at the right time, and his competitive fire was infectious. Game 2 was another close contest, but the Bulls came out on top, with Jordan once again showing why he was the best in the league. The Jazz, despite having an impressive roster, could not match the Bulls' intensity. Jordan, playing through injuries and fatigue, was relentless. His ability to elevate his game in high-pressure moments was what separated him from every other player in the league. Game 3 saw the Jazz fight back, winning the game 104-93, but even in defeat, it was clear that Jordan was still the leader of the team. The defining moment of the 1998 Finals came in Game 5, with the series tied 2-2. The Bulls and Jazz were locked in a close battle, but Jordan's performance in the final moments would go down as one of the most iconic in NBA history. With less than 30 seconds left in the game, Jordan dribbled to the top of the key, where he faced off against Jazz defender Bryon Russell. In a move that would later become legendary, Jordan broke past Russell, elevated, and nailed a jump shot over his defender. The shot, later dubbed the last shot, gave the Bulls a 1-point lead with just a few seconds remaining. It was a perfect encapsulation of Jordan's career: poise under pressure, clutch play, and an unwavering belief in his ability to come through when it mattered most. The Bulls went on to win the game and, ultimately, the series, securing their 6th championship in 8 years. Michael Jordan was once again named Finals MVP, solidifying his place as the best player in the history of the game. But as the confetti fell and the celebration began, there was a sense of finality. This was not just another championship, it was the end of an era. Jordan had delivered on his promise to win one last title for the Bulls, and in doing so, he cemented his legacy as one of the greatest athletes to ever live. As he held the championship trophy for the 6th time, Jordan's thoughts turned to the future. His time in Chicago had come to an end, and it was clear that he had accomplished everything he set out to do. The team had reached the pinnacle of success, and Jordan's leadership, determination, and skill had been the driving force behind it all. The 1998 Finals marked the end of the Bulls dynasty, but it was also the crowning achievement of Michael Jordan's career, a career defined by relentless pursuit of greatness, unparalleled skill, and an unwavering desire to win. Michael Jordan's second retirement in 1999 was one of the most significant moments in sports history. After leading the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships in 8 years and cementing his place as the greatest basketball player ever, Jordan made the decision to walk away from the game once again. His final shot as a Chicago Bull in 1998 had been the perfect conclusion to his remarkable career with the Bulls, but there was still more to his story. Jordan's first retirement in 1993 had been driven by personal loss, but his second retirement was different. He had nothing left to prove. He had done it all. Yet, even as he stepped away, there was a sense of unfinished business, not only with his legacy but also with the game of basketball itself. When Jordan retired in 1999, it felt like the end of an era. His absence from the game left a void that no player could fill. The NBA was now entering a new phase, with young stars like Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and Shaquille O'Neal emerging to claim their place as the league's best. However, none of these players could replace what Jordan had brought to the game. His charisma, his competitiveness, and his relentless drive to win had defined the NBA for an entire decade. The league would never be the same without him. For Jordan, stepping away from the NBA was a chance to explore other avenues. He turned his attention to the world of business and became the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets. But even though he had retired from the game as a player, basketball never fully left his life. His involvement in the sport continued, and his influence on the game was undeniable. However, for a time, it seemed like Jordan's playing days were truly behind him. But in 2001, at the age of 38, Michael Jordan stunned the basketball world once again. He announced that he would return to the NBA to play for the Washington Wizards. His decision to come out of retirement was met with a mix of excitement and skepticism. Could the man who had conquered the NBA once before do it again? Could he, at the age of 38, recapture the magic that had made him an icon in the 1990s? Jordan's return to the court with the Wizards was a monumental moment for the NBA. The league's biggest star was back, and fans all over the world were eager to see what the 38-year-old version of Jordan could do. His decision to sign with the Wizards was somewhat surprising, given his connection to the Bulls and the fact that his legacy was already secure. But Jordan had always been motivated by challenges, and this was no different. He was ready to prove that he could still play at the highest level, even after spending 3 years away from the game. The first season of Jordan's comeback was a mixed bag. While he wasn't the same player he had been in his prime, his basketball IQ, leadership, and competitive spirit were still very much intact. He averaged 22.9 points per game, showing flashes of the brilliance that had once made him unstoppable. But his return also showed that age had caught up with him. He no longer had the same explosiveness, and his defense wasn't as sharp as it had been during his Bulls days. The Wizards didn't make the playoffs that season, but Jordan's performance was a reminder that, even in the twilight of his career, he was still a force to be reckoned with. Despite the challenges of playing at an advanced age, Jordan's return to the NBA was a success in its own way. He proved that his love for the game was still as strong as ever, and his ability to inspire others never waned. The Washington Wizards, while not a championship contender, became a better team because of Jordan's presence. Young players like Jerry Stackhouse and Kwame Brown benefited from his leadership and work ethic. Jordan's return to the court was a gift not just to the fans, but to his teammates as well. The second season of Jordan's comeback was much of the same. He played in 60 games, averaging 20.0 points per game, and showed that, despite his age, he still had the ability to take over games when needed. But as the season wore on, it became clear that the end of his career was near. His body, though still strong, wasn't able to sustain the level of play that had defined his earlier years. Jordan's last season in the NBA came in 2003, and while he continued to compete at a high level, it was clear that his time was running out. Jordan's final game came on April 16, 2003, when the Washington Wizards faced off against the Philadelphia 76ers. The game itself was a fitting farewell. Jordan, though showing his age, still managed to put up 15 points, giving the fans one last glimpse of his greatness. But it wasn't just about the points he scored, it was about the way he played the game. Even in his final moments as a player, Jordan's passion for the game and his love for competition were evident. As the final buzzer sounded, Jordan walked off the court one last time, leaving behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Although his second stint with the Wizards didn't result in championships, it was still an important chapter in Jordan's life. His return to the NBA showed that he was not just a player who had conquered the game, but someone who still had a deep connection to it. His comeback provided closure to the story of his career, allowing fans to see the player they had admired for so many years take the court one last time. Even in his final years, Jordan was the epitome of greatness. His impact on the NBA was immeasurable, and his influence continues to be felt today. The Jordan brand, which began with his partnership with Nike, has become one of the most iconic and successful sports apparel lines in history. His contributions to the game go beyond his playing days, as he continues to shape the future of basketball through his ownership of the Charlotte Hornets. His legacy, both on and off the court, remains a benchmark for excellence in sports. Michael Jordan's career was not just about the number of championships he won or the records he broke. It was about the way he changed the game. He set a standard for what it means to be a professional, a leader, and a competitor. His relentless work ethic, his desire to be the best, and his ability to perform under pressure became the gold standard for future generations. His story is one of overcoming adversity, of persevering in the face of challenges, and of always striving for greatness, no matter the odds. As Jordan's playing days came to a close, his legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time was already secure. But it wasn't just his ability to score or win championships that made him great, it was the way he inspired others to reach their full potential. Jordan was more than just a basketball player, he was a symbol of what it means to push the limits of what's possible. And that legacy, which began in the gym in Wilmington, North Carolina, will live on forever in the hearts and minds of fans around the world. Michael Jordan's final retirement in 2003, after a second comeback with the Washington Wizards, marked the end of a basketball career that had transformed the game in ways no one had anticipated. Jordan had already carved his name into the history books with 6 NBA championships, 5 MVP awards, and countless unforgettable moments that had solidified his legacy as the greatest player to ever play the game. But beyond the statistics, beyond the titles, what truly made Jordan's career legendary was the impact he had on the sport, on the culture, and on the way future generations would approach greatness. By the time Jordan retired for good, his influence had reached every corner of the world. He had transcended basketball to become a global icon, and his Air Jordan brand was as synonymous with basketball as the game itself. For years, the sight of those iconic shoes on the court had represented more than just athleticism, it symbolized ambition, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of perfection. Jordan was more than an athlete. He was a cultural phenomenon, a leader who inspired millions of young players to strive for greatness both on and off the court. But as much as Jordan had changed the game, he had also come to understand something deeper about his relationship with basketball. Over the years, he had confronted his own challenges, fought against his limitations, and rebuilt his career not once, but twice. His journey wasn't just about winning, it was about the lessons learned from failure and the growth that came from overcoming setbacks. His first retirement in 1993, after his father's tragic death, had been a turning point. It had forced him to step back, reevaluate his priorities, and face the realities of life outside the game. It was in that time of absence that Jordan had learned the importance of balance. Even as he returned to the NBA, chasing more championships, the experiences of his hiatus had given him a newfound perspective on what truly mattered. The second retirement in 1999 had been a moment of realization for Jordan. He had achieved everything in basketball that anyone could dream of, but his desire for another championship run with the Wizards wasn't about needing more accolades, it was about his love for the game itself. His comeback wasn't about proving something to the world, it was about rekindling the fire that had burned so brightly in his youth. Though the Wizards didn't capture a championship, Jordan's return was a success in its own right, showing that, even in his late 30s, he could still compete at an incredibly high level. However, by 2003, it was clear that the toll of nearly 2 decades of basketball had begun to wear on him. Jordan was still an incredible player, but the physical demands of the NBA were catching up to him. His body, while still in remarkable shape, could no longer keep up with the relentless pace of the league. And so, in a final moment of grace, Jordan walked away from the game that had defined him for so long. His departure was not the end of a story, but rather the closing of a chapter in a much larger narrative. Jordan's influence on basketball was felt in every corner of the NBA. His work ethic, his competitiveness, and his desire to be the best were qualities that future generations of players aspired to emulate. Players like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and countless others were inspired by Jordan's example, learning from his ability to rise above challenges, push the boundaries of their own potential, and constantly seek improvement. But it wasn't just his basketball skills that defined him, it was his mentality. Jordan had shown the world that greatness wasn't just about talent, it was about mindset. It was about showing up every day, even when things weren't going your way, and giving your best effort in every moment. In the years after his final retirement, Jordan remained active in the game. As the majority owner of the Charlotte Hornets, he shifted from being the face of the game to its guiding hand. His presence in the front office of the Hornets allowed him to continue influencing the game, now in a different capacity. Jordan's understanding of the sport, both from a player's perspective and a business perspective, made him a valuable asset to the franchise. And while his days of dunking over defenders and hitting game-winning shots were over, his legacy continued to live on through the players he mentored, the business ventures he led, and the inspiration he provided to the next generation. Jordan's final years in the NBA were marked by a sense of fulfillment. His legacy was already secure, but the fact that he had returned to the league with the Wizards and still played at a high level showed his commitment to the game and his passion for basketball. Even in his final games, Jordan proved that, while his physical prowess may have waned, his basketball IQ and competitive spirit remained unparalleled. His ability to elevate his teammates, his clutch performances in key moments, and his undying love for the game were all on full display during his brief comeback. Beyond the basketball court, Michael Jordan's impact on the world cannot be overstated. His success with Nike and the launch of the Air Jordan brand revolutionized sports marketing. Jordan became not just a basketball player, but a global icon. His influence extended far beyond the hardwood, making him one of the most recognizable athletes in the world. The image of Jordan soaring through the air with the basketball in his hands, preparing to slam home another dunk, became synonymous with athletic excellence. He became the gold standard for what it meant to be an athlete, to work tirelessly toward perfection, and to push the boundaries of human performance. Jordan's legacy was also deeply tied to his personal story. His humble beginnings in Wilmington, North Carolina, shaped the man he became. The drive to prove himself, the setbacks he faced, and the sacrifices he made all played a role in shaping his character. Jordan's rise to the top was not without its obstacles, but it was his ability to overcome them that set him apart. He was not just an athlete, he was a person who understood the value of hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice. His success was built on a foundation of resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to his craft. As Jordan's playing days came to a close, his legacy continued to inspire millions. Young players looked up to him, not just for his ability to score or his championships, but for the way he approached the game. They learned from his discipline, his work ethic, and his mental toughness. Michael Jordan had become more than just a basketball player. He had become a symbol of what it meant to be great, both in sport and in life. Jordan's career came full circle when he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2009. The ceremony was a moment of reflection as the world looked back on the incredible journey that had defined Jordan's life. He spoke about his struggles, his triumphs, and the people who had helped him along the way. But most importantly, he spoke about his love for the game that had given him everything. It was fitting that his final words as a player and as a person were centered around the very thing that had defined his entire existence: basketball. Michael Jordan's story is one of perseverance, excellence, and legacy. He didn't just change the game of basketball, he changed the way the world viewed athletes. His pursuit of greatness, his ability to elevate those around him, and his commitment to always striving for more set a standard that will endure long after his final retirement. Jordan's legacy lives on in every player who strives to be the best, and every fan who watches the game with the hope of witnessing greatness, and in every person who believes that with hard work and dedication, anything is possible. Michael Jordan may have walked away from the court, but his impact will never be forgotten. His story is one of never settling, always improving, and always chasing the next challenge. His place in history is secure, but his influence will continue to inspire for generations to come.